everyone, I'm Celine. Today our group will do international business cost presentation. We are presenting authentic report. And now let's continue to explain our sectors and tasks.
This report is intended to use the theories learned in the courses to predict AUD against the EUR exchange rate on 31 December 2021. First, the purchasing power parity. Purchasing power parity is also called PPP. PPP is divided into absolute purchasing power parity and relative purchasing power parity. Absolute PPP means that the exchange rate depends on the ratios of the prices of tradable goods measured in different currency. That is, the ratio of the purchasing power of different currencies to tradable goods. This series is based on the one price law. That's it. Assuming that the world market is unified, the price of each commodity in different countries should converge. The assumption of absolute purchasing power is too strict. Even though the growth rate of international trade is very fast, a unified global market is still far from being established. For example, the Big Mac Burger Index. It's the price of a Big Mac burger in different countries. From the data, the Big Mac prices in Europe is 5.02 US dollar in Europe, and in Australia the prices is 4.79 US dollar. So the exchange rate of the Europe against the Australia dollar should be 1 Europe equal 1.04 AUD. But that's basically impossible because that is an assumption that doesn't consider the extra cost like transportation cost. So that relative purchasing power parity point out the due to the transaction cost among countries and the difference in the weight of tradable goods and non-tradable goods among countries. The price level of countries are not exactly equal when calculated in the same currency. According to this theory, the main factor determining the change of exchange rate is the difference of inflation rate among countries. The inflation expectation at the end of 2021, released by the European Central Bank and the Reserve Bank of Australia, is 2.2% and 2.1%. So, through calculation, the Australia dollar is expected to appreciate by 0.1% against the euro. Second series is the interest rate parity. This series holds that the difference between the interest rate of two countries is equal to the difference between the forward exchange rate and the spot exchange rate. Due to the recurrence of the epidemic, the European Central Bank and the Reserve Bank of Australia still maintain the monetary easy policy. The cash interest rates are not expected to be adjusted, which are 0% and 0.1%. So the interest rate difference between the two countries is 0.1%. Therefore, it's expected that the Australia dollar will appreciate by 0.1% against the euro by the end of the year.
This is Edith. I will discuss Task 3 and Task 4. In Task 3, discuss about the effect of demand and supply of money on the exchange rate. Firstly, relative inflation rate. The emergency of COVID-19 has had a huge impact on the global economy. In Europe, inflation has risen sharply in recent months, and the European Central Bank has decided to ease monetary policy. That means a flow of euros come to market in Europe, easing inflation pressure, although inflation has eased. It will also weaken the euro. Australia is also experiencing a slow period of economic development. Its inflation rate is lower than that of Europe. This means the inflation rate in Australia is lower than in Europe. And since the supply of Australian dollar is unchanged, the euro will depreciate and Australian dollar will appreciate against the euro. The second point is about relative interest rate. With the outbreak of COVID-19, the interest rate of Europe have dropped to zero, while in Australia, they have been held at 0.1% to keep the economy going. Then a large number of euro will come. The second point is about relative interest rate. With the outbreak of COVID-19, interest rate in euro have dropped to zero, while in Australia, they have been held at 0.1% to keep the economy going. Then a large number of euro will flow into Australia, and Australian economy will continue to recover due to the increase in investment, thus rising the interest rate. This will increase in the demand for Australian dollar and decrease the demand for euros. That also means appreciate Australian dollar and depreciate euros. The last point concerns national policy. Because the UK opened its borders too early, the outbreak of COVID-19 in UK could not be effectively controlled. Australia decided to open its doors to international students in November this year. Comparatively speaking, the epidemic in Australia can be controlled better. The opening of borders will increase the demand for Australian dollar. Maturity easing would reduce demand for euros. So the interest rate on AUD to EUR will go up. To forecast AUD to EUR at 31st December 2021, we chose a multi-equation model to analyze the likely impact of exchange rates and related indicates, because there are many factors that can be considered in a forecast. In the model, we chose 3 factors from Australia: GDP, CPI, and unemployment rate. The factors we select were derived from the relative data in Task 3. Here we make predictions through the multi-equation model. According to Square R's data, the biggest inflation on the exchange rate of 2 countries is GDP. The variable of GDP growth rate can be determined by the variables each as personal income and expenditure, import and export volume. As GDP growth increase, people's income and spending will increase. Higher income means higher demand for import goods. Increasing spending will create more investment and consumption, which will improve social productive and competitiveness of products in global market. Increased competitiveness of goods can bring down unemployment rate. and people's consumption level will be close to related to the CPI. Through T-value, we can test the inflation of each index on foreign exchange interest rate. GDP has the greatest influence on foreign exchange interest rate, and we can get the layout from table as we show below.
Now I'm talking about text 5 factors that may change AUD against the EUR exchange rate. The European Union and Australia launched the negotiation for free trade agreement in 2018. It was planned to complete agreement in June of 2021. When Australia decided to cancel a multi-billion euro French submarine deal, the Australia-EU trade talks delayed to next week and will be set in November. This deal can reduce the EU tariffs on Australian imports. This will make the inflation rate of EU will have more effect on Australian dollar. The reduction of tariffs will decline of product price. The market competitiveness of Australian import goods will increase. Although the free trade agreement will be delayed to next month, once the agreement is reached, the trade barriers will be removed. It will cause the value of Australian dollar to rise and the value of EUR to fall. Because of the whole process is uncertainty, so this is not included in task 4. From 2020, China and Australia had trade conflict due to the different opinions about the coronavirus. China suspended import of beef, wine, and corn. Australia used to have a massive market share of exporting this product in Chinese market. From the end of 2020 to March 2021, a sharply dropped from 324 million to 12 million of Australian dollar of importing Australian wine, and it declined at an alarming number, 81%. Through this data, it can inform the world's relationship and the trade. Because of running off export revenue and the lower demand of Australian dollar, it might depreciate the value of Australian dollar. But in fact, even though the contraction, trade would highly affect Australian imports. But the trading between Australia and the EU area was stable. Because of commodities price growth and the depreciation of USD dollar, so Australian dollar remained stable. Political issues are hard to predict in the multi-equation model, and there was practically no data can be used to be measured in this situation. Another factor that may change AUD against the EUR exchange rate is consumers' expectation. Consumers' expectation about future tendency of exchange rate would affect the exchange market. Economics considered if people had confidence on one currency, then value of this currency might appreciate in near future. Example like at the end of 2019 in Australia, there was wildfire events happen, and this extremely endangered citizens' daily life made healthy and investors' confidence, especially in economic aspect. According to measurement method, financial loss exists 100 million at the last quarter of 2019 because of financial activities got influence, like damage to house and business, the loss of jobs, overseas investors' confidence, dropped consumption and demand of Australian dollars. However, this weather factor was unpreventable and unforeseeable. Therefore, in last task, we could not put this factor in. In task 1 of purchasing power parity sector, we use the purchasing power parity and calculate inflation rate in Australia and Europe. And the inflation rate will be 3.3% and 3.8% respectively by the end of 2021. Estimate exchange rate AUD against EUR will appreciate on the 31 December 2021. Through calculation, we estimated the exchange rate AUD against EUR might be around 0.606. In the task 2 of interest parity part, the estimation through interest parity calculation, AUD against the EUR will become 0.63063. Also, we thought it will be appreciation as well. Then in the third paragraph of causes in foreign exchange, we also assume Australian dollar will be increased in value due to estimate inflation rate in Europe area will be higher than inflation rate in Australia. The commodity price will be lower than in Australia. It might cause net export boosts and therefore demand of Australian dollar will grow. In the relative interest rate and the government actions, we got some conception of exchange rate. At the following task 4, we used the multi-equation model and the GDP, CPI, and unemployment rate to support our research and forecast. In last department of other external factors that may influence AUD against EUR exchange rate, the political issues, the trade issues, and the weather factor, they are either on measurement or uncertainty, and could not be measured in multi-equation model of task 4. We take all analysis of model and various of factors in this authentic report. Our group consider exchange rate AUD against the EUR will be appreciated on 31 December 2021.